Says the Mishnah, the parak starts, how did it become Zaymin? And the Mishnah seems to answer with two examples, and both those examples are problematic. Two Adam walk in the Bezdin and say, we testify about Ish Ploini. Now Ish Ploini, that guy is a Kohen. The Edom are also Kohanim in our story. Shu ben Grusha ben Chalutza, we testify that he's a ben Grusha or ben Chalutza, which means he's a Apostle Kohen. And we don't say, let this guy become ben Grusha or ben Chalutza. Let these Edom be or ben Grusha or ben Chalutza Tachtav instead of the Nida and instead of the defendant. Ela rather loik arbam, they got 40 malchus. Next case, we testify about this guy Shuchayev Ligla said he has to go to Golos, which means we testify that he killed B'Shoigig. And we don't say Yigol is that Tachtav, let this aid go to Golos instead of him. Ela rather what happens loike arbam, he gets 40 malchus. And again, we're going to divide this gemara into three parts. Part number one is going to discuss the flow of the Mishnah, which seems to be problematic. Part number two is going to discuss why do they not get the classic punishment of kasher zamim like they wanted to give. And part number three is going to discuss why do they get malchus. Says the Gemara. In part number one, we're going to have two kashas, two problems with the lashon of the Mishnah. Problem number one, ketzat ein oedim nasa zaymin. It should have. It should have said, Ketzat Eino Edom Nasa Zaymin. How do Edom not become Zaymin? What's not the classic din of Zaymin? Because in both of these cases, they're not getting what they wanted to give. That's question number one. Question number two, Void. And second of all, the Katani will come on. The Mishnah later on, specifically on Dafei, tells us, gives us a clear description of Zaymin. It says as follows: if they said to them, meaning the second set, said to the first set, hey, how could you say the Seidos? Sharei, because on that day, you were with us, we're complaining in this place. End quote of the Mishnah on Dafei. Those are going to be Zaymin. And so why is it that our Mishnah is starting, first of all, why are we asking how do Edom become Zaymin? And second of all, why are we giving cases that are not becoming Zaymin? If we're asking how they are becoming Zaymin, the question and the answer don't work. So the Gemara's teretz is going to be that it's actually a continuation from the final Mishnah Masechah Sanhedrin. Says the Gemara, we're going to skip the parentheses, line 11. New Gemara, starting at 235. Line 11. Says the Gemara, Tana, the Tana of our Mishnah, Hassam Vir Kai, he was up to. Hassam Vir is referring to Masechah Sanhedrin. So Tana, Hassam Kai, the Tana was there in Sanhedrin. Tana is coming out of Masechah Sanhedrin. The Masechah Sanhedrin, the Tana of our Mishnah, is continuing from the end of Masechah Sanhedrin. So the Mishnah in the end of Masechah Sanhedrin says as follows. The end of Masechah Sanhedrin discusses which punishment different people get. Who gets which Misa. So over there it says as follows. Kol HaZaymin, you can put in quotes if you want, there's a Mishnah in the end of Sanhedrin. Kol HaZaymin, all Edom Zaymin, Makdimin, they go ahead. And you know what happens to them? They go ahead, La'oisa Misa, to that Misa that they wanted to give. So Oisa Misa means that Misa, meaning the Misa they wanted to give. If they were trying to give a person Skilo, they are going to get Skilo. If they were trying to give a person Chenek, they are going to get Chenek. So, should go back a line, we'll go back a line. Yeah, yesterday's Kasha, right? That the Mishnah doesn't flow, the Mishnah has to, yeah. So the Gemara says, going back to line 11. Tana Hasam Kai, the beginning of the Tarot. So Tana was up to there, meaning the Tana was finishing Masechah Sanhedrin. The end of Masechah Sanhedrin, it says as follows. Quote, Kol HaZaymin, all Edom Zaymin, Makdimin, they go ahead, La'oisa Misa. To that Misa being whatever Misa they were planning on giving, that's the Misa that they will get. Chutz, besides for one case. Mizaymimei, Edom that said, Edom Zaymin, that said Eidos, they testified about a Bas Kohen, a daughter of a Kohen, Uboyala. Boyala means the man that was Mizana with her. We'll explain this in a second. Let's explain it right now. Right, we'll put it up on the board here. If a man is Mizana with an Ashes Ish, so the Boyal is the guy that's Mizana with her, the guy that lives there, has relations with her, so the Boyal gets Chenek, Misas Chenek, that's death through strangulation. And if the woman he was Mizana with was a regular Bas Yisrael or the Bas Levi, death penalty. Yeah, for an Ashes Ish. Ashes Ish.
Always? Or only
yeah.
If it's a kain?
No. Even if it's a Bas Yisrael, it's Chenek. But then they both get Chenek. However, if she was a Bas Kohen, since a Kohen has to hold himself to a higher standard, her Misa is going to be more strict. So he's going to get Chenek regardless of whether it was a boil with a Bas Yisrael or a boil with a Bas Kohen. The guy is always getting Chenek. But the girl, the woman, I should say, if she was a Bas Yisrael, which includes Bas Levi, then she gets Chenek. If she was a Bas Kohen, she gets one up to Sreifa. She gets a stricter punishment. Clear?
So this is not.
This is nothing Zayin.
This is not.
This is a regular case of a man that lives with an Eish Ish.
Not a rape.
Right. They're both. This was both that was consensual. They were both intended to do this b'mezid, and that's going to be the misa. Now, what the Mishnah in the end of Masechah Sanhedrin says as follows: two Eidim walk into Bezdin, and they say to us about this story that there was a boil that had relations with a Bas Kohen. Now, Bezdin accepts their Eidos. Bezdin is about to kill this guy and this woman. This guy is about to get Chenek. This woman is about to get Sreifa. And then the Zaymim and the Eidim that said Eidos about the story, they get caught. They're Zaymim. Now,
but that's in Chicago.
So they were in Chicago, like that it says, right? He saw them. So now they were trying to give one person Chenek and one person Sreifa. Sreifa is more strict than Chenek. They really deserve two punishments right now. The Eidim Zaymin deserve Chenek and Sreifa. The general rule is that when somebody does an Aveira which deserves two punishments, he's going to get the stricter of the two. So in this case, if I would ask anybody before they see this Gemara, they would say, these Eidim that said Eidos about this story of the boil with the Bas Kayin, and they got caught, they should get Sreifa. Says the Mishnah in the end of Sanhedrin, they do not get Sreifa. They get Chenek. And we'll see why in a minute. But this is an exception to the rule.
What's
Meaning,
the worst one?
Sreifa is worse. So the standard rules should say that they get Sreifa. They're going to get Chenek. And the reason for that is because the pasuk says, and again, we're going to leave the pasuk up for a while. We're going to be dissecting it. Asisim loish nudem kasher zamim, like he plotted laws to do la'achiv, to his brother. This tells us that in a scenario that there is one eidos, and that eidos is applying to a man and a woman at the same time, and the eidim get caught, they are going to get the punishment that they were going to give the guy, not the girl. So the achiv tells us brother, not sister. Now, this is not saying that if eidim say eidos against a woman that she was mechal Shabbos and they get caught, they don't get kasher zama. Of course they do. It's only in this specific case where the same eidos, we have the option to punish them like the man was going to get punished. We have the option to apply the punishment was going to happen to the woman. In that case, we will choose the man's punishment over the woman's punishment. So is that clear? So that's the end of Masechah Sanhedrin. Says the Mishnah. We're going to go back a drop. The Mishnah in the Masechah Sanhedrin. Kol hazayim in the end of line 11. Kol hazayim and all eidim zayim makdim, and they go ahead lois samisa to that misa, meaning the misa they were going to give the defendant the nidoy. Chutz besides from izayim mei bas koyin, eidim that said eidim about a bas koyin, ubayala and the guy she was mizana with. Bayala sounds like Baal. Baal means husband. It's not her husband. The guy she lived with. She'ein makdimin. They would not go ahead la oisa misa to that misa. What's that misa in this case? The misa they really should get, which would be sreifa, and rather la misa acheres. They're going to get a different one. They are going to get chenek. So on top of oisa misa, we're going to put sreifa. And
This is still the Mishnah.
this is still the Mishnah in Sanhedrin. That's the end of the Mishnah in Sanhedrin. And misa acheres is chenek. Now, that's the end of Sanhedrin. Now, in that case, if I ask you, are they getting kasher zamam? Are they getting what they wanted to give? Sort of.
Yeah.
Partially. Rashi calls it partial kasher zamam. They did want to give chenek, but we're sort of ignoring that they also wanted to give shreifa. So giving them partial kasher zamam. Now, the segue into Maseches Makos is, and then there are some Eidim Zayimim that don't get kasher zamam at all. That's the segue. That's like the blank page at the beginning of the book.
This is the last Mishnah.
That's the last Mishnah in Sanhedrin. And then there the segue goes, and then there are some Zayimim don't get kasher zamam at all. And then our Mishnah pipes up and says, how do those Eidim become Zayimim? Ketzad ha'Eidim, those that don't get kasher zamam at all. What's that case? That's what our Mishnah meant to ask. Our Mishnah wasn't starting a new conversation. How do Eidim become Zayimim? That's not what our Mishnah was saying. Our Mishnah was coming off the end of Masechah Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin says, sometimes Eidim Zayimim, in this case, of the Bas Kayin Ubayala, only gets partially kasher zama. That was finished. Sanhedrin put the book back on the shelf. Now we're going to take out the book of some Eidim that don't get kasher zama at all. Here we go. How do those Eidim become Zayimim? Which ones are those? Those that don't get kasher zama at all. That's what our Mishnah meant to ask. Those Eidim. Now, when you read the Mishnah, you don't see that, but we see that in the Gemara. So now the Gemara, we're continuing on line 14, right after the end of the quote of the Mishnah. The Mishnah finishes with Misa Acharis. Now the segue is V'yesh Eidim Zayim and Acherim. There are other Eidim Zayim she'ein oisin bahem, that we will not do by them din hazama, the din of kasher zamam, kol ikar at all, elo malchus arbon, only 40 malchus. End of segue. That's the connection between Sanhedrin and Maseches Malchus. And now here starts the Mishnah. You're going to write the Mishnah over the next word.
Kol ikar is at all.
Kol ikar means at all. Right. We're not doing any kasher zamam. Now our Mishnah begins. Keitzad, meaning the first 4 words of our Mishnah. Keitzad mazla means how is that case? That case that you're telling me does not get kasher zamam. How is that case? Question mark. And then we answer. And the next 3 lines are just a quote from our Mishnah. Midin Bish Pliny would testify about this guy, Shuban Grusha Ben Chalutza, that his mother was divorced or got Chalitza before he was born. We don't say that the Eidim should come and call instead of him. Rather, they got 40 malchus per year.
In Sanhedrin, you mentioned malchus.
No, that's like the invisible words. That's between the 2 volumes. That's what belongs. Meaning, Sanhedrin finishes. This is a case of partial kasher zamam.
Because this is called makis.
Right.
Makis.
Right. So Sanhedrin finished.
The
connection is it's going to discuss. The connection is that Sanhedrin finished off talking about Eidim Zayim. That's why we start with Eidim Zayim.
No, I'm saying why is this called makis?
Because of the 3rd parak.
Oh.
Because the 3rd parak, the Ritzvah discusses where that comes in, where the name, why the order of the prakim. I don't remember his chashma. I think it's a Ritzvah. But
does makis have anything to do with malchus?
Yeah. Malchus, same thing. That's the third. The whole 3rd parak discusses malchus. But Masechus Sanhedrin discusses the misas that Bezdin gives, and here we're discussing the other punishment Bezdin gives, which is Golus and Malchus. But we started off by discussing Eidim Zayim because that's how we finished Masechus Sanhedrin. We're just finishing that up. So again, what we're having is as follows: Masechus Sanhedrin discusses cases. One case which is partially kasher zamam. Then we finish Masechus Sanhedrin. We're about to open up Maseches Malchus, and the Tana tells you some cases. I'm going to continue with cases that don't really get kasher zamam. I'm going to give you the extreme case that doesn't get anything like they wanted to give. They wanted to make the guy apostle a claim. They're going to get Malchus. They wanted to send him to Golus. They're going to get Malchus. They're not getting any kasher zamam at all. What's that case? And that's what our Mishnah is saying. So we're going to redefine those words. Keitzadei Nemas Zaymin. Instead of translating it like we did yesterday, how do Eidim become Zaymin in? We got to emphasize the word ha'edim. Kate said ha'edim. Those edim that don't get kasher zama. We're already in the middle of talking about edim that don't get kasher zama. Those that don't get kasher zama, what is that case? What happens to them? And there the Mishnah answers. They said Eidus that he's a pasal kain. They don't become pasal kain. They get malchus. Said Eidus that he's chayav galus. They don't go to galus. They get malchus.
In the second case, even if you would have said that he should go to galus, there's really no family to come in.
Right.
So
maybe
what do you do? Send him to Galus and he can walk out free?
Maybe take the Goyal Adam, meaning he said Bob killed Mike. That's what the Adam said. So Mike's family was going to chase down Bob. So maybe Mike's family chases down the Adam. Maybe that would have been Havamina. Okay, right? Well, maybe we'll get a volunteer, right?
Who was it?
There was some guy, I don't remember who it was. I was very into the Goyal Adam.
I was very excited. They wanted it to be a girl done for hire.
Yeah.
They're hitmen.
He said he wanted to do it.
Yeah.
As a job.
Well, it's only a Havamina here, so it's not going to end up happening. Okay, let's see. That's.
Already gearing up just in case.
Let's get.
So Yankees out?
I don't know. We're hoping. I sent him a text yesterday. We're starting apart, but still hoping. We don't give up on anybody. Okay, let's get the Gemara's Teretz. The Teretz begins the lines 11. Says the Gemara, Tana Hasam Kai. The Tana was up to Veer. Where's Veer?
You said it's on recording. You still for dessert ones.
Yeah, desserts. We're waiting.
Put on recording.
Tana was up to Veer. Where's there? The end of Masechah Sanhedrin. Just an interesting point. If you're going to take out a Gemara Sanhedrin, you're not going to find this at the end of Sanhedrin because the Mishnayos and Gemara, the last 2 parkim, switched in the order. I think the reason is because what's printed as the last parak in Sanhedrin and Gemara is a lot of Agadah, a lot of stories, a lot of different things about who has a chelik in Olam Haba and who doesn't. So that's in Mishnayos, that's the second last parak. But in Gemara, they put it at the end. So if you want to look at this Mishnah in Gemara, you got to look at the second last parak, not at the last parak. But in the proper order, this is the last Mishnah in Sanhedrin. Says the Gemara, Tana, some the Tana was up to there. Where's there? The end of Sanhedrin, which says, Kol Azayim All Edim Zay Makdim, and they go at Oisa Misa. Yeah, back to line 11. Tana, some Tana was up to there. Kol Azayim All Zay Makdim, and they go at Oisa Misa. That Misa they wanted to give the boil. They wanted to give the guy that was. I'm sorry, they wanted to give the Nidon.
Do we know what Isa is here?
Isa says whichever one they wanted to give, which means they wanted to give a guy skill, they get skill. They wanted to give him chenek, they get chenek. Whatever it is. Chutz, besides for the case of Mizoyime Bas Koyin Ubayala, Edom Zaymimin, that got caught testifying about a Bas Koyin and her boil, the guy that lived with her. She'ein Makdimin, they will not get La Oisa Misa, that Misa, which would be Streifa, meaning the stricter of the two. Ela rather, La Misa Acharas, they are going to get the more lenient of the two, which is chenek. Now, that's the end of the Mishnah in Sanhedrin. End quote. I'm just going to put that into quotes because if you want to. Now, that's the end of Sanhedrin. Let me say Acharas. Now, the next line and a half, 2 lines, it doesn't really say anywhere. We're supposed to understand this. B'yesh Edim Zayman Acher. There's another type of Edim Zayman. She'ein oisin bo'er. That by them we don't do din azama, the din of kasher zaman, kol ikar at all. Ella rather, what happens to them? Malchus Abam. They get 40 Malchus. And on that, here's where our Mishnah begins. Ketzad, meaning we're swallowing the first 4 words of Mishnah. Ketzad Masazayman into that one word. Ketzad. What is that case? That case is Meidinona Bishplaini Shu Ben Grusha Ben Chalutza. We testify that this guy is a chalal, he's a pasal kohen, which is called a chalal. Einoim, and we don't say Yeyah says that. Let this witness become Ben Grusha or Ben Chalutza Tachtav. Let him become a Ben Grusha or a Ben Chalutza. Let him be a chalal, a pasal kohen instead of him. And rather like a Sarbam, he gets 40 malchus. So we'll hold it here. We had almost the first Ramadan in 2 nights. Bez Hashem, we'll get some Chazara tonight and Chazara of Shabbos.
It sort of makes sense.